we're going to talk about a gun that, although is quite close to my heart in terms of a gun that I've known and loved for a number of years, you can't actually buy them anymore. So today we're going to talk about the Lanber sporting shotgun. Lanber's a Spanish company based, well, when they were in production, based in the northern part of Spain in the Basque region in Zaldibar, which is the sort of the gun making capital of Spain. It's kind of like the Brescia of Italy. Well, in its heyday in the 70s and 80s, you'd got AYA, Sarasquita, Zabala, all those sort of Arietta and all those sort of side-by-side manufacturers, along with some guys producing over and unders, Lerona, and in this case in point Lanber. A company that's formed in the early-ish 70s, I believe, and at the time, I don't think they had a lot of employees. There wasn't a lot of output of guns because we were still ultimately worldwide. We were shooting side by sides. Over and unders were only just starting to come in, particularly for game shooting. In the 1980s, Gunmark, as it was known back then, which is now GMK, got hold of this as a gun because they wanted an over and under that was going to compete with the budget price guns on the market at the time, things like Silma, Lerona, Lincoln and the like. And I don't know how it came about, but they ended up with a strong relationship with Lanber. So we've got some Lambers here we're going to have a look at. I'm going to give you a bit more information about the company and I'm going to tell you what makes them so great. So this is a Lanber Sporter from about 87, 88. I'll have to check the proof marks, but it's that kind of era. Now, at the time in the UK, like I said, there was tons of guns on the market you could buy. There was Supreme, Silhouettes, tons and tons of Italian stuff, Zabalas, Cerezos, Zollis, they were just everywhere. There were so many manufacturers out there. And what GMK managed to drop on with this is probably one of the most solid and robust starter guns that the UK has ever seen, really. So back then, this is a completely unaltered version. Look, it's got the little Lanber recoil pad on the back with the Lanber logo man shooting. Extremely, extremely affordable. I mean, at the time, probably £325, something like that. And for that, you were getting a single trigger ejector, selective, ventilated barrels, ventilated rib, multi-choke. So in the same way that you could perhaps look at an ATO or a COFS today, someone would go into a shop, a gun shop, wanting to start clay shooting, and 9 times out of 10, the shopkeeper would say, you want a Lanber, because they just work. Back in the 80s, it was this model with sort of the scroll engraving, which is not dissimilar, perhaps a Miracle or Browning Grade 1, perhaps a Miracle 7000 at the time. Nice oil finish stock, Schnabel forend, and they were just cheap. They were usually Magnum proofed, so you'd sell one to somebody who was an all-rounder, bit of pigeon shooting, wildfowl, etc., because you could put big heavy cartridges through them. And this model carried through to kind of mid-90s when it had a slight revamp, and they came up with this. So you've got to look quite hard to see the differences, to be fair. So with the sporting guns, and they did make field guns. They made some Lanber field guns, some multi-choke with some game scene on, also some fixed choke with some narrow ribs. And just to rewind slightly further back, in the very early days of Lanber, they made something called an Ibar gun, okay? And you can tell one of these because it's got an alloy action and it says Ibar gun on the barrels, and they were dreadful, okay? I don't think they worked when they were new. I wasn't in the gun trade then to be able to confirm or deny that, but everyone I've come across since has broken, okay? So if you're gonna buy a Lanber, do not buy an Ibar gun. It's called that for a reason, because it's awful. Right, so fast forward to when we got the steel action ones. So this is a 90s gun, and literally, because it worked so well, we're talking about a gun here that if you do a little bit of research on the internet, it was the best-selling shotgun in the UK a number of times. I'm not saying every single year, but at the time, 80s, 90s, there was so much competition. There was the Browning medalists, there's the Zollies, the Cerezos, I keep coming back to the same things, the Silmers, the Rosinis, the Laronas, and these time and time again outlived most of them. Okay, so this is a 90s model. Again, it's virtually not changed from the 80s model. It's still got the Lanber pad. It's got a slightly different engraving style, okay, and that is about it. If we go a bit further forward, this is when the big change came. I don't know exactly. I started selling shotguns in 1996, and I think these came out in about 2003-ish. So the big step forward for Lanber then, although the action was exactly the same, and the way the ejection worked and the cocking dog and all that sort of stuff hadn't changed, they went to this Beretta-esque action design with these hinge pins here, these hinge discs, which don't do anything, okay? They are simply for show. That's all they're for. But it made the gun look a bit sleeker, a bit fresher, a nice bit of nice polished action with the Lanber name on it. And I think underneath they carried on with the traditional sort of scroll work, gold trigger, etc. About this time as well, 2003, 4, 5, whatever it was, they started to steel shot proof things. So if you can pick up a Lanber of that sort of era, 2004, 5, 6, whatever it is, the chances are it'll be steel shot proof. So again, for a good quality starter gun, if you were to purchase one now, it would future proof you moving forward. If we carry on a little bit further into the Lanber story, so just to note, the rib, which is slightly different, I think on the very early ones. No, it's the same. I think we've got about 11-ish parallel rib with a tram line. This Lanber Sport, which I think is called a 2097, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, were one of the first guns I can remember to be available in sort of a proper left-hand cast option. I mean, today there's loads of left-handed guns on the market. We specialise in them here at Premier Guns. But back then, there wasn't a lot of choice. It was usually a question of getting a stock bent. Now, these, to my knowledge, were one of the first mass-produced guns available in the UK that you could buy with a proper left-hand manufactured stock, because there are pitfalls of bending one, because quite often they go back, which was great, because again, even in 2005, 6, 7, whatever, they were like 550, 580, 600 pound, which value for money. And just to add into that, if I look in this genuine Lanber case, you got a 5-year warranty with it. You know, a 5-year warranty on a gun of that price just was unheard of. You know, you got 12 months, I think, back then with a Beretta, possibly 2 years. So what GMK had done, as they have done with a number of brands, they'd found something that was really, really special and just didn't really give a lot of problems. So this, and again, another first that I can kind of remember, about rather than the left-hand side, it was the first gun I can remember when I was working in the shop in my younger years that came in a plastic case, because back in the 90s, if you bought a Beretta 686 or a Beretta 687 or a Browning 325, it came in a cardboard box. You had to spend an awful lot of money to get a plastic case. So again, from a presentation point of view, someone would come into the shop, you'd say this is £500-600. It comes with plastic. Well, that's nice, it's a plastic case. You know, don't get me wrong, they go in the loft, but at the end of the day, it was from, like I say, on the day, it was a nice little sales tool to have. So you got the 5-year warranty, the Magnum proof, the multi-choke, and now it comes in a natty little box with a genuine vinyl choke pouch with your little chokes and your key in there. Okay. And in 2008, I was fortunate enough to go to Lanber. Went to the Lanber factory along with my now business partner and one of my colleagues at the time. The hospitality on that trip was absolutely incredible. It was second to none. Now, at the time we went, I think Lanber were the largest producer of guns in Spain, I think about 9,000 a year, and they'd got just 35 employees. So we went round the factory, extremely basic, extremely, I don't want to use the word primitive, but it was very agricultural, industrial. There's a man, you know, pressing the engraving with a hand press. They bought the stocks in, so it was all put together in-house. But it just showed me, having been to other manufacturers on a much larger scale, what is possible. You know, you'd got the likes of AYA were still in business over there. You'd got Lerona, Arietta, and these guys with 35 employees were knocking the most guns out altogether. Fantastic. They did have a bit of a flirtation with a semi-auto and a 20 gauge. Both came into the UK, both never really caught on. We still see the odd 20 gauge now. The autos, I think, from memory, had cycling problems and they didn't last very long, and I think GMK pulled them out of the market. And I think from then on they just stuck to the game and the sporting over and unders, which is what they were good at. Over the next couple of years, something happened that I don't think Lanber were really expecting. There was various fluctuations in the exchange rate, and models like entry-level Browning and Berettas were actually coming down in price, whereas the production costs of things like Lanber's weren't getting any cheaper. So the gap was getting much smaller. So it got to the point where, you know, you were paying or potentially paying £800 or nearly £900 for a Lanber, and it was no longer first gun money. And I think that was kind of echoed worldwide, and Lanber really started to struggle, sadly. And despite, you know, they had the idea of having, they changed the checkering style and they put it in a different box. I remember they did a case colour hardened one with a gold bird on, which is probably a bit before that, to be honest, about 2006. They just couldn't compete, and sadly, I think about 2012, this is a 2011 gun, which was almost the last design before they went to the war. I think they did do a scroll engraved one from memory after another scroll engraved one. That was the end of Lanber. But because I must have sold literally thousands of these guns, new ones, used ones, 20 gauge ones. They did a non-ejector back in the 80s, which I saw tons of when I first started in the gun trade. There's something that I've got a real soft spot for, because at the time they were just brilliant. Someone would come in and you could sell one with confidence. It wasn't going to go wrong. It got good warranty with it. If something did go wrong, you send it back to GMK, no problem at all. And it is a really sad thing to think that you can no longer buy a new one. That said, there's tons of them out there. You know, they made, like I said, 9,000-ish guns a year. They were making them for 70 years. Don't touch the early ones, they're rubbish. Okay, the Abar guns, they are really rubbish. But there's loads out there, and I think, hand on heart, they're probably still the best value used starter gun you can buy. So solid, so durable, will do anything. Parts these days can be a bit problematic because they're no longer in production, but you know, any gunsmith worth his salt has seen dozens of these, so he can make a cocking dog or he can make an ejector slide or whatever. But if you're out there and you're looking to start shooting, this would be absolutely top of my list if you're looking at a used gun that's going to be solid and reliable, and also got a nice, although sad, nice bit of history along with it. It is just so much better than other Italian guns, the likes of Rizzini and Silma. They're just better, and it's a gun that I will forever be fond of, have great memories of, particularly going to the factory. And I would urge people, particularly on a budget. I mean, you're looking, none of these guns here, we've got 30-inch multi-choke sporters. I think this one would be a 28-inch one. None of them are over £500. And personally, yes, we sell a lot of some of the new Turkish brands like Koffs and ATA. I would rather own one of these than a new Koffs, because I think it's a better made shotgun. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got a Lanber, if you want to buy a Lanber, if you want to know something about Lambers, then by all means drop us a message, send us an email, give us a call. We've usually got 3 or 4 knocking around, left and right handed, and like I said, it's a gun that you can buy with confidence, knowing that it's going to give you a lot of years of shooting pleasure, regardless of what you want it for. It's not a lot of money to just buy one, stick in the cabinet, or even as a guest gun. You might have a 525 or a Silver Pigeon or something that's, you know, your high days and holidays gun. You know, Dave from the pub wants to go shooting, you're not going to give him that, are you? But this is the gun that you can just have in the cabinet, give somebody to it, you know, give them to have a go, bit of pigeon shooting, whatever. It's a brand that is extremely well known, extremely well loved in the UK. Like I said, rewind 25 years. This gun won best-selling shotgun in the UK for a number of years, and that has got to show something about how good these guns are. That's it from me. That's the Lanber story. Please like and subscribe to the Premier Guns videos, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for watching.